You ready?
Without further ado, here's our host, Joe Jerome.
Everybody, welcome to the Science of Webinars. Today we're joined by Nick Salvatoriello, otherwise known as Nick Sal.
Howdy.
Hey, Nick.
Howdy.
Nick and I are doing a series of webinars that are here to help you with your community building. And I met Nick about 12 years ago as a HubSpot partner, and Nick was the personality of the HubSpot partner broadcasts. And a lot of people probably remember that. I don't know if they do them anymore, but they were doing them about every week. And Nick was kind of, I wouldn't say kind of, he was very famous among the partner network. And later he was at Drift, where I followed him there too as a partner, and was doing the same thing, building communities. He's been lighting it up ever since then, and he's doing event planning and community building. And right now he's at Next Level Inbound, which is his gig today. So without further ado, I give you Nick Sal.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Joe. For the folks who've joined us live, hello. And for those folks who'll be watching the recording afterwards, hello to you as well. All right. And as Joe said, him and I go way back from the time when I was helping run partner enablement and partner training, and basically how HubSpot, that software company, did co-marketing, co-selling, co-servicing with partners. And so much of that was driven through webinars, group coaching sessions, like one-to-many style formats. I really fell in love with the format there. And been involved with helping whatever company I was at, whether it's HubSpot, other Drift, other agencies, other HubSpot agency partners. I've had my own DJ business on the side. It's just been awesome to focus around the event and the community building side of what we do here in this format. And when Joe and I got to catching up, as I started my own business here, Next Level Inbound, as Joe said, we started talking about how he has helped companies use the HubSpot CMS to take their podcasts, webinars, their communities, and like build that out and make a self-sustaining, self-consuming sort of community hub using HubSpot. I said, that's so cool, man. I am all about HubSpot. Obviously, worked there for 5 years with all their and worked with their partners like at these agencies for several more. Let's talk more about what you're doing. And he showed me some of these examples and so on. He was generous enough to say, come on here, Nick, to one of my office hours and share a little bit of my thought leadership, some of the best practices that I've gathered here for you about what makes a non-boring webinar and virtual events. That's the enemy, right? If we don't have engaging webinars, if people are bored, they sign off, they don't come back, they don't tune in, you don't build any sort of community, you don't build any sort of momentum, you don't drive any sales. And Joe, this is just the first chapter, right? We talked about, I'm going to come on here, speak my piece a little bit, and you're going to weigh in. And then the next one, you're going to do most of the presenting, and I'll chime in like that.
Yeah, we have a whole series of these every Friday coming up. The next one's going to be on HubSpot events and more of the technical side behind the scenes. And I'm going to walk everybody through one of the communities that I've built and how that works with a very custom HubSpot solution.
So just know that, that's a big part of how Joe and I are willing to come together. He knows how to build that. I know how to build this part. We talked about how we can do a joint scope together for anybody who is curious about that. We're not here to just pitch that today, but if you're interested in, wow, I'd like to work with Nick, but I know Joe better, you can contact Joe and I can come in under that. Or if you know me, you can contact me. I can bring Joe into any sort of scope that we talk about, especially if you're powered on HubSpot. All right. So with that being said, let's talk about the science of putting on non-boring webinars and virtual events and ones that drive engagement and community on your site, because that's what we're really all about. All right. With that being said, I already did some of the housekeeping. Yes, this is being recorded. It's being recorded in a couple of ways. I see some of us have some of our chat bots, our AI, assistants are taking notes right now. Feel free to use chat for questions. This is a live event. We got a few of you here. We got a little bit of a live studio audience. We can customize the content around you and your questions, as well as the folks at home. You can message us afterwards who watch this on demand, but please use the chat panel liberally. Joe and I are going to watch it. And if you have any technical issues, just let Joe know. This is his show, and he can help you if there's any problem with audio. And please do stay engaged. That's one thing you'll hear from me here. That's just so important. Psychologically, you'd retain more from what you spend, from what you actually engage with here. The more that you chat, the more you interact. So, with that being said, who is ready for some trivia? Let us know in chat. That also subtly shows us you can actually hear me, that you're actually there. That's always a nice plus. But I'm sure you folks are ready to rumble. And Joe, before we do this, because once this train leaves the station, I think it's going to be hard to stop. You're calling in from where? Where are we all in the world today?
Yeah, you're asking me. I'm from Delaware.
That's right. So Joe's down there in Delaware. And I'm out here in the Boston suburbs. And if you folks want to chime in where you're calling in from the world today, I think one of the coolest things about webinars and virtual events is for very low cost. It's really just like time and a little bit of software and, you know, maybe some marketing spend and stuff like that. You can bring people together from all around the world and we can interact with each other.
Wow, it is all around the world. We're getting the chat message right now. Delray Beach, Florida, London.
Okay, now we're talking. Good. So we've got, you know, up north, down south. We've got across the pond. We love it. Glad to have you folks here. I see you here in the chat. So let the trivia begin. You can you can guess the answers in your heart, or you can actually put it in the chat. We thought we'd spare you from a formal poll today because we're keeping it loose on Zoom meeting, right? But what percentage of webinar attendees do you think are likely to leave a webinar early if it isn't engaging? This is like the number one thing I'm about is, do you think it's A, 15% would do that? 35% of your audience would do that? 50% of your audience, or 75% of the average webinar attendees to a B2B webinar? What percentage do you think they would leave if you don't engage early in your?
Oh, we got some guesses in chat coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I think that's obvious.
All right, we got two guesses so far, 75 and 50%. You know, I was kind of leaning towards 50%. I don't know if I actually, we kind of went through this deck, but I don't think I know the answer to this.
Well, this came from On24. Their webinar software, 75% of the attendees that they surveyed, that they measured, would abandon a webinar if it's not engaging. And sometimes abandonment doesn't equal they're literally leaving the room. But, you know, we've all done this, I'm sure. I hope you don't do it today, but you click away. You know, it's in the background. You've still got your headphones on, but you're doing something else. We've all been there. And that's, of course, what we don't want to have happen. So doing things like this can help engage people early. So engaging content is crucial, especially since you're in a live interactive format most of the time, to keep your attendees invested throughout the event. So you'll see me doing this a couple of times, and I'll be doing constantly some calls and response here. And it helps you, like I said, to stay engaged. So question 2 for you: how much higher are the engagement rates in webinars that have interactive elements like I'm demonstrating lightly here? Polls, Q&A, things like that people get to interact, compared to those that don't. Do we think the engagement rate would be 20% higher if you did this, 30% higher, 50% higher, or 70% higher? I believe this stat I got from a HubSpot report. So this is just my opinion. But what do we think if we used polls and interactive elements?
Oh, we got some guesses coming in here.
Right, 30%.
30% or higher. Yeah.
I would take 30%, right? Obvio. I mean, that would be fantastic.
Heck yeah.
The more we can get people to engage, especially if they're prospects or existing clients, the more we can learn from them, the more we can see what they're engaging around, what did they say, what did they chime in on, and stuff like that, right?
Oh, Manuela has 70%. That might be too. I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going to go with 50 again.
The British are bullish. Let's see. It's C. A HubSpot report says that webinars that use simple, lightweight interactive tools like this have a 50% higher engagement rate than those that don't. Sorry, typo there. So if you don't do this, we are leaving 50% of the potential prospect or customer or client engagement on the table. Can't do that. So interactive elements significantly boost engagement and participation. So we are not just about let's help you put on a webinar. Let's help you build some infrastructure afterwards where that webinar recording can live and snippets of content can live. We want it to be interactive, starting here at the live event. And then when you go to the community to go look at it afterwards, it's not this static, just, you know, Zoom page. Here's the video, watch it, watch the entire raw recording, and then get out of here, right? There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. We can. Yeah,
so I guess everyone's 50%. Everyone's 50% more engaged now.
I hope so.
You know, because you did it.
That's right. As always, we try to walk the walk, right? But Joe, you've seen this yourself, right, man? When you actually provide interactive elements, when you said when you saw me on a previous webinar group that you were a part of, it just gets people more fired up, man. And you say to yourself, is this just hype? Is Nick just like here to do hype? No, there's science behind this. That's why I believe we can weaponize it. We can productize this because we want more out of our marketing efforts, don't we?
And Nick, this is a little preview to, speaking of science and the HubSpot way of doing things, this is a little preview to your presentation at Inbound this September in San Francisco, isn't it?
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that, Joe. Yes, I've been chosen to speak at Inbound for the 4th time. And my talk will be about what are B2B sales strategies when you do field events, which are trade shows, virtual events like this, workshops, dinners, things like that out in the field when you're live and interacting with folks. So yes, you're getting a taste of some of the thought leadership I'll be bringing into that talk as well. If you can't make it out to San Francisco, or even if you can, definitely come see me on September 5th. after lunch. It's going to be awesome. All right, but here's the current reality, folks, as I've seen it. Been in the corporate world for over 15 years, been doing events of all kinds during that time. And webinars, virtual events, whatever you want to call them, they're often managed by like campaign managers rather than people who are experienced communication professionals, sales professionals, evangelist types, people who are comfortable with the public speaking, with slinging words and interacting live, riffing with people. That's a certain skill set. And oftentimes the people who manage webinars are not given that task for that particular skill. They are managing multiple spinning plates and stuff like that. And because webinars are not often something that all the executive team is sitting down with, the marketing leadership team is building their whole company's promotional plan and their quarter around, these things often happen off on the side. They're starved for resources, starved for attention and prioritization, and they just kind of come off a little bit thrown together, a little bit of an afterthought. And you can almost see it sometimes. I don't know if you folks have been on some of these B2B webinars you see companies put on, and you can sort of feel like they don't even want to be here, or they're trying to like get this over with, or they're like really winging it. All of those don't feel good. If you're trying to use this as an event to build a sense of rapport and trust and connection with somebody, which is, I hope, what we're here to do, that's not a great feeling, right? And so this is what I'm seeing out there. And also here on the right, you're already obviously poor audience engagement. When the presenters are all coming in, here's my pitch, here's my selfish motive, and then everybody's kind of got their different flow, their different talk tracks. This is especially true if you have a large organization, you're bringing in different departments, or if you have multiple partners or customers or clients you're featuring. I do this all the time, quarterbacking this type of thing, and you get a lot of stuff that comes in different in terms of tone, flow, layout, and it can feel jagged and fragmented. So this is because no one's really taking ownership of all those different parties, and no one's taking ownership of how that's going to come off to the attendees. Here's why we're showing you this. Here's what's going to happen next. And people feel a little bit abandoned. So I don't know if other folks can relate to this. If you want to put in a chat, other things you've experienced in sort of like the current, status quo, like a lame webinar thing that you've seen. But if you can relate to any of this, let us know in chat or write down a note or something like that if you're watching on demand. More of the current reality I've seen is, again, because you don't have somebody fully taking ownership of the total user experience on that virtual event for everybody involved, the attendees, the people who are going to be presenting and speaking and interacting. Sometimes you come on and realize the mic's not working, the screen's not sharing, the speaker hasn't shown up yet. And you feel like, you're trying to go up for the big show, the lights are off, the curtains are still closed, you're not wearing any pants. I've been through these types of scary technical snafus or content snafus, what's going on with the internet today. It can be embarrassing, it can be stressful, and it's the type of thing that when you think about, should we do a webinar again? Should we make a whole like community play out of this? You think about that time, and you go, I don't want to go through that again. We can't afford to look foolish again. So this is another thing that keeps people from putting on webinars, is the lack of technical ownership, the lack of technical preparation and mastery scares them off. And then that leads to the right here. Even if you do pull it off, like many of us have, and you present everything, you're just kind of like, whew, man, I'm just so glad that actually worked. People actually showed up and nothing blew up. I just want to move on to the next thing, the next campaign I got to do. And follow-up is often a dropped ball. I've had examples where there's hundreds of registrants, hundreds of leads, but they didn't quite have a plan in place to scale, and the maelstrom and the whirlwind of work got caught up, or the sales team didn't really know what to do with these leads. They didn't expect them to be coming. Nobody enabled them around it. And there's just crummy, generic follow-up, if none at all. And then they go, why are we bothering to do this? What did we get out of this webinar again? They could have gotten more, but we didn't follow these best practices. We missed some marketing opportunities. So what sets a great webinar apart? You folks are also welcome to chime in if you have other ones to add to this list. But in my humble opinion, the biggest buckets when I see high ROI webinars, we generated a ton of pipeline from this. This generated a third of the pipeline we need to generate this quarter. This is amazing. We got 3 or 4 major customer upsell opportunities out of this. We have a major strategic account that's requesting a demo of our software that we've been trying to get on the phone to do that for months now, and they're willing now finally. What is it that makes that happen when I look back? It's making sure that the best ones align leadership and secure buy-in. Everybody is in on this is going to be big, and we all need to play a part from the beginning, cross-functionally. They plan every detail. There's templates and checklists. There's potentially a webinar guide as to how things are done. There's somebody owning that with project management rigor. That's what it says here, strong project management and technical expertise. We're going to drill it ahead of time. We're going to plan ahead of time. We're going to test it ahead of time. We'll meet and coordinate, make sure everybody's on the same page. Everyone's going to be in the right place. And then once you get live, there's an investment and a commitment and a willingness to risk having a healthy balance of entertainment as well as education. And entertainment could be something like trivia, like I just did. That counts as light entertainment or edutainment, if you will. And then finally, they capitalize on event-driven interest or any affinity that they gauge because you took some chances here. You had a really fun and entertaining and as well as educational webinar. They capitalize on that with a solid follow-up plan. They've got a strong offer at the end of the webinar. If you do this, you get this. Here's what you can expect next. They've enabled the sales team ahead of time to expect these contacts to be fed to them and rotated to them. And they have sequences ready to go and they follow up. That is what a really great webinar cake looks like, folks. And if you'd like to find out how to bake one of those, that's what I want to spend the rest of the time talking to you about, because that's where I come in. I have over 20 years of helping put on, in various ways, shapes, and forms, highly engaging and interactive events. You know, ever since I was a DJ in college, putting on class reunions, dances, parties, up to onboarding HubSpot customers in a group setting, to training and certifying their agency partners out there in the field, putting on high stakes events with celebrities and other folks like that. I'm just usually this is the burning building I like to run into. This is my jam. I like to bring groups of people together. I love to quarterback. I'm gonna make you guys look good today. Make everybody happy today on this session, that they came and that they participated and that they contributed. I learned these skills, like I said, from these 20 years being part of HubSpot Academy, where we led the industry in training about digital marketing, inbound marketing, presented at Inbound multiple times, not always flawlessly, right? I learned a lot of things. I've been through the minefield of high stakes communication around these topics. And we've got some proof in the pudding as well. My jobs and my contracts have rested on, we need to get outcomes out of here in order for it to be worthwhile. So I'm just letting you know, been there, done that, especially when it came to making sure that we got bottom line outcomes here. I'm always focused on that. It's not just about putting on a really entertaining show. It's making sure that people are motivated and educated to take action. So that's what my business focuses on. That's why I call it next level inbound. I want to help you guys get to the next level. So I help companies to level up their events by helping them gain that buy-in and alignment. So if you need someone who's going to be able to talk to your leaders about, this is the brief of what we're doing, this is what we need from you to make it happen. I provide project planning and project management support. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to work. I'm going to show you some of the templates that I've developed in a moment. I also provide expertise at the event, at the MC role. If you guys don't have a Nick or a person like that, an evangelist, an extroverted, presenter type person that you feel you can tap in your own organization, I can do it for you. I have done that for you, for companies, and been their spokesman as a service. You know, they're audience handler as a service. But also I have years of experience finding and recruiting your own voices inside your own organization. And I've gone to those folks who often are terrified at presenting in a big public format with over 300 people on it or something like that. And I'll tell them, I'll backstop for you here. I'll handle the technical cues, and I help prep people to get their voices out on behalf of companies, and the gratitude they feel, the excitement they feel of having had that opportunity and that preparation. I just also live for that. I love to help amplify other causes and other voices. And then also, these events don't necessarily pay for themselves or promote themselves or build themselves. I have a lot of experience and confidence in finding and approaching people in your ecosystem who can contribute event content, who can help co-promote this event because they've got a stake in it, and also find sponsors, even people to underwrite and pay for a bit of the production costs that you want to do and level up your webinar. Lots of experience there. And finally, using events to help participants to get things done and create value before they sign off. It's a big part of what I want to do. That's why I'm showing you templates that you can take inspiration from. Oh, this is the last one actually, which is to create episodic experiences in a true community. And that's why I'm drawn to people like Joe, because Joe knows how to do that on HubSpot with the infrastructure. And I believe no event should exist in a vacuum. This event is not existing in a vacuum. This is one of three different three-part series that Joe and I are doing with you guys together. If it's worth doing once, it's worth keeping things going and expanding the conversation in the community here. So if you folks have any questions or comments around other things that you think are important to go into a webinar, please let us know in chat. But otherwise, I want to talk about some key roles. Whether you're an army of one over there, you might be wearing all these hats. You can bring in someone like me and or Joe to help carry some of these hats for you as well, if you have an agency or a vendor who can help you in some of these areas. Or you might be trying to make sure these hats are on somebody else inside your organization. Regardless, to execute a high impact webinar, you're going to need somebody owning these areas. A visionary. I just mean someone who's got confidence and some guts and some taste to say, we're going to do something big here with this webinar. It's not going to be ho-hum. It's not going to be cookie cutter. It's not going to be what was done before. We're going to do something different. Then you need an aligner, whether it's the same person who had the vision or not, someone with access and influence and communication skill and ability to sell a little bit needs to go around the organization and get buy-in from sales, from marketing, from customer success or client success, what have you, maybe from the product team if they're involved. But we need someone who's going to be comfortable going around and saying, this is what we need from you. Then you're going to need people who are creatively minded, creatively savvy, who are able to then jockey all the slides, the content, and the inputs that will come in, the creative assets, and so on. So having a creative person, a design fluent person will be important to make the webinar content pop and have a real feeling of a brand around it. A technical producer is kind of like your roadie, and you're going to need, once you get live, if you're hosting the webinar like I am, Joe's my technical producer. You need a roadie, a sidekick, a running buddy who's going to make sure if sales is blowing up on Slack going, hey, this prospect can't get in. Hey, do you have the webinar link and so on? Hey, or the attendee saying, I can't hear. You're leaving me behind. What's going on? You need someone to hear those people out, to engage with those people perhaps, because the people watching the webinar don't want you, the onstage sort of actor, the performer, to be off, dimming the lights and opening and closing the curtain, right? They want to see you out there totally focused on them like I am right now. Cool. So technical producer is super important to allow that to happen. And then yes, okay, sure, I'm a little biased, but having a charismatic MC, a host, a facilitator, somebody who's confident, stepping in and saying, this is what we're going to do, this is what's going to happen next. And should the unexpected happen, to lead the audience through how to deal with that, to show them, hey, that's okay. We're going to hang tight for a second while Joe gets his mic back on or whatever, right? Until Nick's slides come on back. That's all right. It's just going to be able to make sure everything works smoothly from the front end, the public end. And then finally, the sales liaison. Remember, we're all about driving ROI, driving sales revenue. So you need somebody owning, making sure sales is prepped ahead of time. This is what the event is. This is your involvement in it. This is what we need from you. And then afterwards, hey, here's the list. Here's the contacts. Here's the follow-up sequence. Go, that type of thing. All right. So if those are the essential roles, those are the people involved, I want to talk about some tools and templates. And this is going to give you all the ingredients you need to brew up any type of webinar that you want to do. So here are the core tools that I use and I have templated to streamline webinar planning, whatever type of webinar you want to do. One is a webinar brief template. You need a single source of truth for all the event's goals, the logistics, everybody can reference it. And it's a great way to establish that in the beginning. A run of show, or sometimes abbreviated to the ROS. So you have a minute by minute plan of what's going to happen, who's going to say what, when. So it's just seamless how you execute. A technical checklist, again, just to make sure, have we tested everything? Is everything working? So that is the run of show that we plan going to actually show up that way? Are we sure? A promotional plan, so you can make sure that there's actually butts in seats, people there to attend and interact, and just is the audience are we sending the right message and expectation to them? Have we put the right budget or resources behind that? A KPI dashboard to ensure from the beginning, during the webinar, and afterwards, you are tracking key metrics to show you, am I on track? Is this working? Are we getting something out of it? What does this all mean? These are really the key core tools. If you have them in place in some flavor, you are really on track to get some of those high percentages of engagement that I was talking about at the top of our call. I want to just take you through some examples here, and you can create your own. It's not important that you mimic exactly what you're seeing, but that you think about the ingredients that go into this. Is you need to be having, it's probably going to be more than a couple of pages, so that you can have a comprehensive, organized strategic plan. And it should have all the stakeholders involved understanding, this is our goal, these are the requirements, this is what we're shooting for. I just have a breakdown here. It's a little bit more legible what usually is included in it. And it doesn't even have to look at what I showed you. I've worked off an event brief before where it's just like a running Google Doc, right? It might be a very informal thing. That's kind of what Joe and I did for this. We already kind of knew, all right, Joe's going to talk first, then Nick's going to go. Like, that's not by accident what happened even the first couple minutes. No matter how informal or small what you're doing is, have a little bit of a brief as to how it's going to work. Purpose and audience, who are we targeting and why, what's in it for them, the event agenda, who are the different players that are involved, and then how are we going to get the word out. Have that established in brief at the beginning. And it's okay if some of this is blank. What do we know for sure? What don't we know? So you know who to check with, who to bring in around that. Then you go to ingredient B. Now that you have this in brief, you can start building out more tactically how this show is going to run. Now, you can plan the experience minute by minute. I don't know about you folks, but I can't tell you, there's been multiple times where I'm involved or going in to do an event or some sort of meeting or whatever, and it's not really clear who's going to speak first. Should the slides be up already, right? I mean, even in certain sales meetings, right? If there's more than a few people involved in it and you're jumping on a Zoom, like who's going to go first? Wait, what are we going to do? Huh? What? So don't have that. Your audience deserves better than that. Your sales plan around this deserves better than that. Have it planned out. And this way you can actually get help. If you don't know what's to be said and who's going to do what, then they're all going to come at you. They're all going to be running at you going, what are we doing? Where are we going? You have to be running this the whole time, Nick. You can't MC. You've got to have this. You've got to lead us through this. No, you want a technical team, your creative team, your sales team, your admin folks. You want them all to be able to see the same document in real time and not have any guessing as to what's going to happen next and who's involved. And then over here in the lower corner, it's a bit optional, but if you work with bigger organizations like I often do, and you have different departments that are contributing, often you'll get an executive who's willing to be the speaker, and they'll say, oh yeah, no, we'll send over our standard slides that our department normally talks about, and this person will send them. So often the person speaking is not the same person who's going to give you the slides that they're going to speak about. So sometimes you need to break it out like this, like in this example I have, to say, well, this is slide one, and this person will be speaking to it, but I need to get the content, the DRI, the directly responsible individual, will be this person. I'm going to get the slide from them. They're going to speak to it. All of these things make it more clear to you and everybody else who's involved, what needs to happen and when, and who is responsible for making sure that happens. Otherwise, all these roads end up leading to you. It is stressful. It is overwhelming. You will not be able to handle it if it's a big, complex, high-stake event, and you're going to leave stressed, and your participants are going to leave stressed, and it's not going to be a good look. So now we go to ingredient C. If we know in brief what the webinar objectives are, who's involved, we've got it starting to flesh it out, run a show. All right, it's going to be this, this, and this. Now you can start to make sure the technical checklist will test all those things. If we know the run of shows, we're going to play a video. We're going to play some music. Have we tested the video to work on that platform? Do we know the platform's going to be able to show the video? Do we know that the slide deck is going to be visible or not? I was just on a webinar yesterday, folks, and the person did not show up. I didn't run it myself. I wasn't running it myself, but I always like to go to other people's webinars, other online communities to learn from them and see stuff like that. And the presenter, who had plenty of notice, shows up, and unfortunately it shows up right when the thing is about to start. Can't get the slides to show properly. So they're basically showing us in sort of like presenter mode what they're going through. It just wasn't the best look. It was okay, but we could have done better. Platforms like Zoom and all these other ones are changing and evolving all the time. So don't be surprised if you thought you knew how Zoom works, like I thought I did a couple months ago. We jump on to do a webinar and suddenly I can't chat with the audience because by default, Zoom has switched that off for some reason. These are all things you stumble through, and a technical checklist can be a place for you to catch and collect and update the gotchas that you've seen over time. And I've got a bunch already in my template to look at. All right, now the promotional strategy brief. We've got a great brief of what the webinar is about overall. We have a great run of show. We know it's going to be a good time. And then we technically know it's going to be pretty flawless. It's going to be pretty foolproof. Now we got to get the word out. And this is, again, often a drop ball, not because it's super hard to do, but you don't start early enough. You don't get marketing involved soon enough. You don't feed them the right amount of information so that they can help you. So once again, you, the army of one running the webinar, is scrambling and probably just going it alone. Whereas if you'd gone in a little early and pulled these people in a little bit earlier, we could have gotten a lot more out of it, the same effort. And that's why I want to drill down just for a moment. You should have in your promotional strategy brief, here's my target audience. Here's the ideal client or customer profile. Here's the pain points or needs that we want to address for them. Yes, I know our service, our product addresses some cool things too, but what do they ultimately want to talk about for this topic? We're breaking down for you. Hopefully you see we're true to the promise. This is the science of putting on good webinars. These are the ingredients and the pieces to make the formula work, right? So you have to make sure that the creative aspect folks know what to promise, what to say they're going to do so that your content will actually deliver. And then also, how many people are we trying to reach? Do we need to get 20 people, 50 people? What's our ambition here? And that will help people figure out the level of effort. Then, do you have any feedback for them? Any creative team, writer, or designer I've worked with, even if you're talking about AI, right? They're going to need some sort of prompt as to what's the basic messaging, what's the basic positioning. If you did the strategy brief at the beginning, you've already got a starting point here. You can drop that in to this document and hand it off to folks. The last ingredient here is the KPI template. And it depends on what KPIs honestly matter to you folks. But the one thing I do challenge you to do is make sure you do establish it. Having been in marketing for many years, sometimes we dodge some of these KPIs, or we really say, it's sales' problem or whatever. Own a few KPIs. We're a one team, one dream. We're trying to drive the revenue. So this shows some common ones around webinars in general, but if you're working with someone like Joe as well on the front end and HubSpot, and he's helping you set up the HubSpot infrastructure around this, the messaging, the invites and stuff like that, the page views, the page visits, there's a lot more leading intel you can get and pulling out of HubSpot to jive with whatever your webinar platform is showing you in terms of registrants, attendees, and things like that. And don't forget these user experience metrics. Once you actually get in the webinar, you can track what polls people fill out. What did they say in the poll? The entire chat transcript can be taken down and audited and so on. And we're not trying to be creepy about that, but sometimes people don't want to address a whole bunch of questions in a form. We all know this as digital marketers for some time. The shorter the form, the better. So how are you going to get some additional data and KPI and intel to hand off to sales about these prospects or these clients? You can engage them with the polls, with the chat, with the tracking that's available inside these platforms, and be able to draw some more conclusions. This was a highly engaged contact here. Sales, you should follow up to them about that. Or this is somebody who only made it the first 10% and then dropped out. Let's make sure we send them the message, hey, did you miss it? Here's the recording. Do you have any questions, or was it not what you were looking for? Something like that can all help customize the sales follow-up. So pulse check here. You can ask yourself in your heart, or if you feel confident enough to put it into chat, given what I just told you, what I've seen that works for best practices, the people that are involved, if you get those people involved, if you use these templates, you'll be organized. How confident you feel if you had people owning those roles, if you had these templates filled out, that your next event would meet your business goals if you were to go it alone. And if it's anything less than if it's a 3 or less, I'd be happy to talk to you gratis. I'm building my business. I'm doing market research. If you would rank yourself less than a 3 or less, you're not that confident, you're a little bit scared, I've been there, I know how you feel. I'd be happy to offer just some advice on whatever your plan is, whatever you're working on, to help you get to where you need to be. So I can help you. Yes, I obviously do have a business that is also available after a call like that, but I can help you coach one-on-one. You just want some advice, you're going to go it alone, limited budget, or you've got a really good team in place, but you just kind of want to level up a bit. We could just join a couple of calls, review some plans. I could be there for the dry run, be there to review the tech check and that type of stuff. Or this is where Joe and I team up, is around like more project-based support. Maybe you want to spin up a new online community with a few events and a community to go around it on HubSpot. Joe and I have already scoped out and talked about how our two pieces can come together on that, or do it even on a retainer. And Joe and I have also talked about our willingness to offer like a volume discount on our usual services and module pricing to work together and do multiple events and maintain and grow your community, your presence for all that content, how it's all housed and how people engage with it and track around it in HubSpot together. So here to help you come right alongside what you're used to doing with Joe and offer you a volume discount because Joe and I know we can do more and go further working together than we can working alone. Who would have thought? And, it's always good to have a couple of anecdotes to show you. I really have done this before. I would hope that your own executives and colleagues could be sending things like this if you leveled up your approach. We want people laughing, crying with tears of joy, hopefully, right? People who are fired up. Hey, people who really love how the moderation, the facilitation was done, the feeling that somebody came together and was a linchpin for your organization. I can help you do that. I've experienced getting that feel out of people. So I'm here to bring stakeholders together, as Justin Keller at Drift found out. I know how to create an experience, as Diane Garcia, this copywriter, learned from working with me. I'm very committed to giving the audience what they need so that you folks in your business organizing it can get what you need as well. So what now, as I'm done here, I'd like to again offer you a free consult. I would be joined at the hip with Joe. So if you fill out and book some time with me from this webinar, I'm going to let Joe know. We'll coordinate. Joe can be on the call and we can talk in just one meeting about how what I do and Joe can come together. Or you can book with Joe. You know how to reach him in the usual way that you book time with him. And he can pull me in as needed to answer your questions as well. But what I'm really offering is a chance to look at your plan or a past recording of what you've done, or we can look at the whole user experience flow. How does it go from like invite email to registration page to during the event, where can people interact with you and your community? Where does this stuff get housed afterwards? How do you interact and follow up and nurture these people afterwards? All that we can take a look at no additional cost. You can just head there or contact Joe. All right, so thank you. And remember, engaging webinars, they don't just happen. As a matter of fact, what usually the default is an unengaging, sloppy, and stressful webinar. Good webinars that engage us are designed that way. That's how this deck got made. So let's design something extraordinary together. Thank you, Joe, again, for having me on and letting me go first here in this conversation that we're trying to have with your community, and appreciate everybody's time. Happy to take any questions, or Joe, any follow-up comments from you.
Thanks, Nick. This was great. Wow, what a bunch of stuff that we had to absorb here. It was full of information, and yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to doing my next event in 2 weeks with you, and having you as the co-pilot is also like having you as the master of ceremonies on these things.
That's
I
right.
know you'll keep me afloat on the whole thing. So
That's a good point. They'll see me thoroughly in the MC seat. A little bit of a demo for you on your presentation in a couple weeks.
I'm just checking the chat panel for any questions. We have some thanks, and thank you for coming.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. I know it was something we threw together here, but I hope it was useful to you. And again, if you have some questions, some ideas, or even some concerns, you just let us know. Happy to talk about it.